must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for finding time to join us again today. The show is Diaspora Dispatches, where we get to look at the news making headlines across the continent. In our morning show, we were looking at the news making headlines in Kenya, and we went through the newspaper headlines, and also we had a topic of the day that focused on Kenya. And of course, our concern was on the rising corruption in this country. So thank you so much. My name is Miriam Mugutu, and a very warm welcome to you wherever you're watching us from. So before I get into the news, let's just look at the latest statistics in a very few African countries and see how we stand in regards to the COVID-19 numbers in Kenya. I still have the figures from yesterday, but I'm sure in just a bit, the Ministry of Health will be giving its daily briefings, and I know these figures are set to change in the next few minutes. So before it changes, let's just read what I have right now. And confirmed cases in Kenya right now stands at 4,952. The death toll is 128. Recoveries is 1,782. And Uganda, the cases have gone up at 797. Recoveries is 699. And in Namibia, the cases is at 1,477. The death toll is 18, and recoveries is 1,213. Zimbabwe, confirmed cases is 525. 6 people have died, and recoveries right now stands at 64. South Sudan, the figures right now stands at 1,930. The death toll is 36. Recoveries is 217. And in Sudan, confirmed cases right now have topped 8,889. The death toll is 548, and recoveries right now are at 3,699. Ethiopia, 4,848 cases, 75 people have died. Recoveries is 1,412. And Madagascar, 1,724 confirmed cases, 15 people have died, and out of that, 732 have recovered. And Somalia, 2,812, 90 people have died. Recoveries stands at 818. And we go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and 6,027 cases have been reported in the DRC. 135 people have died, and 861 others have recovered. And in Guinea, 5,040 cases have been reported. 28 people have died. 3,685 recoveries have been made there. And Rwanda, 798 confirmed cases. 2 people have died. 371 have recovered. And South Africa, the figures there keeps going up. Yesterday it was like at 101. Today is at 101 and 6,108 confirmed cases. The death toll in South Africa is 2,102. Recoveries is 55,045. And in Egypt, 58,000 cases, 141. 2,365 of those have died. 15,535 have recovered. And in Burundi, still the figures are like yesterday and the other day. And the confirmed cases in Burundi is 144 cases. 1 person has died. 93 have recovered. And in Nigeria, The figures there is at 21,371. The death toll is 533. Recoveries is 7,338. And in Ghana, 14,568 cases. 95 people have died. Recoveries stands at 10,907. And we move to Algeria, 12,075 cases. 861 deaths. Recoveries stands at 8,674. And the total number of confirmed cases in the continent is at 324,196. The number of people who have died is over 8,000, standing at 8,588. And recoveries right now stands at 153,972. And I might just add there that these figures were prepared just slightly earlier, so there's a probability that the numbers there have drastically changed. So wherever you're watching me from, in whichever country, please update me on the latest and let me know what are the figures, even some of the countries that I've not mentioned here. Thank you so much. So like right now, let's just turn our attention to the news-making headline in this continent this afternoon. It is an afternoon here in Nairobi, about 6 minutes past 3 p.m. I don't know where you are. It could be, if you're watching me from the U.S., a very good morning to you, and the rest of the world, a very good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in, and thank you for joining me. So we start with Ghana. And Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo has apologized to Nigeria for the demolition of a building at its High Commission in capital Accra, the Nigerian presidency has said. The Ghanaian leader told President Muhammadu Buhari in a telephone call that a full investigation into the incident will be undertaken. A statement on Tuesday said some suspects have been arrested and will be arraigned in court. It added armed men reportedly stormed the High Commission in the early hours of Saturday and supervised as bulldozers demolished a newly constructed building. The building was intended to serve as residence for staff and visiting diplomats at the Ghanaian embassy in Nigeria. And at the Nigerian embassy in Ghana. Sorry, it's the other way around because President Nana Akufo-Addo is the one who has called Buhari to apologize, right? All right. So we move to Gabon, where members of the Gabon's lower house of parliament have voted to decriminalize homosexuality, becoming one of the few countries in sub-Saharan Africa to reverse a law that punishes sexual relations between people of the same sex. Last year, the Central African National Nation criminalized homosexuality and made gay sex punishable with 6 months in prison and a large fine. 48 members of parliament have now backed the proposal to change the 2019 law and lift the ban. Half the number opposed the amendment. And we cross over to Liberia, where Liberia's education minister is undergoing treatment for COVID-19 as his ministry prepares to reopen schools next week. Ansu Soni and his deputy Latim Dathong are both in hospital. The deputy minister was flown to Ghana after his condition worsened, Liberia's front page African newspaper has reported. Information Minister Len Eugene Ngabe told the newspaper that Mr. Dathong was in a stable condition. He denied reports that Mr. Soni was also in Ghana for treatment. So both the Minister of Education and the Assistant Minister for Education are both sick with COVID-19, but they're intending to open the schools very soon. So I just don't understand how that will work out there in Liberia. And then we head over to Uganda, where Ugandan pop star turned opposition member of parliament, Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine, has said he will hold campaign rallies despite a ban by the Electoral Commission. The People Power Movement leader said President Yoweri Museveni was using the coronavirus pandemic as an excuse to prevent opposition leaders from reaching voters. The East African nation will hold a general election in January 2021, and the Electoral Commission has banned mass campaign rallies to protect voters against coronavirus. The Commission has encouraged aspiring candidates to campaign through the media. President Museveni, who is serving his 5th term in office, is eligible for a fresh term but has not announced whether he will vie. Bobi Wine said the reason given for the ban on rallies was not genuine, and I'll just quote him, and he said, No Ugandan should be fooled into believing that Museveni is doing this for the safety of Ugandans. What Museveni fears is the people. I don't know if he's still safe in the comfort of his house there, as he's declared he'll go on with the with campaigning even after the government has banned any form of political campaign because of the ban on huge gatherings of people because of the the dangers that comes with the spread of COVID-19. So President Museveni seems to be milking this COVID-19 very well to his own advantage. I don't know what you think. You let me know what you make of that story. All right, they're from Uganda. And we move to Tanzania. And an opposition party in Tanzania has condemned the arrest of its leader, Zitto Kabwe, describing it as a clear act of oppression and intimidation ahead of October's election. The Alliance for Change and Transparency says Mr. Kabwe and 7 colleagues have been accused by the police of unlawful assembly. Police interrupted a legal political meeting in the southeastern region of Linde and arrested them on trumped-up charges. A party statement says the East African nation will hold elections in October. Now, President John Magufuli, who is expected to run for a second term, dissolved a parliament last week. Rights groups say oppression of the opposition has increased significantly since President Magufuli came to power in 2015, during which time there has also been a clampdown on the media. And still staying in Tanzania, the East African Court of Justice, EACJ, has denied to halt enforcement of disputed provisions of the Tanzanian Political Parties Amendment Act 2019 as petitioned by the leaders of opposition parties. 5 opposition party leaders wanted the regional court to stop the Tanzanian government from implementing disputed provisions of the Act, pending determination on their compliance with the East African Community Treaty. Now, the court agrees with counsel representing the Tanzanian government that halting the act would hold back civil education for political parties. So in case you're wondering what this act is that opposition leaders had gone to, the East African Court of Justice to petition, this is what happened last year. Now, Tanzanians parliament passed amendments to legislation, not last year, but in January, that gives sweeping powers to a government appointed registrar over political parties, a move that opposition, of course, legislators say will cement a one-party rule. Now, the amendments give a government-run registrar sweeping powers to register parties and provide for up to a year in jail for anyone engaging in an authorized civil education. For example, a voter registration drive, which, well, I think makes a lot of sense because things like this are supposed to be controlled by the government, voter registration. But and also critics say the amendments will sharply curb freedoms in the country and prevent an effective challenge to Magufuli and the ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi party in next year's general election and this year's local election. So, all right, so Tanzania there, we have a problem. John Pombe Magufuli, I don't know. Like the things I never used to hear coming from Tanzania, but after President Magufuli has been in power there, you hear stories and you wonder, is that coming from Tanzania or which country is that? So very interesting developments there in Tanzania, even as the country looks forward to going to the general election in October. All right, and then we move to Egypt, where Egypt wants the United Nations Security Council to undertake its responsibility and prevent Ethiopia from starting to fill its massive newly built hydroelectric dam on the Blue Nile next month without an agreement. Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry told the Associated Press on Sunday, accusing Ethiopia officials of stoking antagonism between the countries. Ethiopia announced on Friday that it will begin filling the dam's reservoir in July, even after the latest round of talks with Egypt and Sudan failed last week to reach an accord governing how the dam will be filled and operated. Egypt formally asked the Security Council to intervene in a letter the same day. Filling the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam would potentially eventually bring the years-long dispute between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia over the $4.6 billion mega project to a critical juncture. Now, Ethiopia said the electricity that will be generated by the dam is a crucial lifeline to bring millions out of poverty. With the start of the rainy seasons in July, of course, bringing more water to the Blue Nile, the Nile's main tributary, Ethiopia wants to start filling the reservoir. Egypt, which relies on the Nile for more than 90% of its water supplies, it has always been against that move. And we cross over to Cameroon and some information touching the Amazonians and the national coordinator of the presidential plan for the reconstruction and development of the northwest and southwest region of Cameroon, Paul Tassong, Monday said, embarked on a 2-week sensitization and awareness campaign mission to the said regions. He began his tour in Bamenda, chief town of the northwest region of Cameroon, in the course of the current Anglophone crisis rocking the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon since 2016. Many public and private infrastructures has been destroyed. The need to reconstruct these regions prompted the putting in place of the reconstruction plan to give back hope to the people in the regions. All right, if you're watching me and you are from the Anglophone region there in Cameroon, Paul Biya's government wants to come there and start reconstructing the infrastructure in that region. I don't know how you feel about this, and I don't know what kind of infrastructure that the government of Cameroon will be seeking to reconstruct. In a lot of places there in the Anglophone region, they don't need a reconstruction. They need a construction. A lot of places don't even have proper, structures, proper infrastructures like roads, schools, and all of that. So I don't know what kind of reconstruction the government of President Paul Biya is seeking to do there in the Anglophone region, but I would imagine the Anglophone region requires construction. A lot of these things don't exist in that side of Cameroon. So this reconstruction, I don't know what the government means by that, but you let me know. And still staying with Cameroon, and Cameroonian aid and health workers have welcomed the calls by Nobel Peace laureates and former heads of state for a COVID-19 ceasefire in the country's troubled western regions. Now, fighting between Cameroon's army and Amazonians has forced over 1,000 health aid workers to flee, putting tens of thousands of patients at risk in the middle of the pandemic. Cameroon has so far confirmed 12,321 infections and 309 deaths from the virus. And Nobel Peace laureates calling for the COVID-19 ceasefire in Cameroon include Mohamed Yunus, the Bangladeshi banker to the poor, and the former presidents of East Timor, Jose Ramos Horta, and South Africa's F.W. de Klerk. I don't know why. The name of former South African, the last minority leader, the white president in South Africa, I don't know why when I saw his name here, I thought, okay, I don't know how genuine this Nobel Peace Prize winners, I don't know how genuine. For the East Timor former leader, and this other guy, the Bangladeshi, banker, perhaps, but F.W. de Klerk, I don't know. Where did he get the moral authority to stand and speak and try to correct and try to point at people and situations he feels are out of order, while he, until today, after all that black South Africans went through in South Africa even under his leadership, even today, he still feels apartheid should not even be considered a crime against humanity. So this former, they shared a Nobel Peace Prize, him and Mandela, for being that he allowed, I don't know if he allowed or it's his agitation of the time and the pressure that he received from the black South Africans and from the international community that had to force him to allow for the majority rule in that country, and that later led to an election that Mandela became the first president of South Africa. So him coming out here and calling for a ceasefire in Cameroon, well, it is a good thing. I just don't want to hear him speaking on certain things, especially when human rights abuses are concerned, because I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if he will be the right person to address some of these things. I don't want to hear that coming from his mouth until he comes out and he agrees and he takes responsibility and he puts it in black and white that apartheid is a crime against humanity, was crime against humanity. And until he does that, I don't want to hear from him, especially when it comes to matters where human rights abuse are being carried out. I do not want to hear from F.W. de Klerk. The last minority white president there in South Africa. And just the other day here, we were talking about how he had been invited to go to some organization in American Bar Association in America, in the US, to lecture to the world about racism, about I don't know what else. Ridiculous. I don't even know who thought that was going to be a good idea. But later on, he had to step down because of a lot of uproar and criticism that invite had attracted. So these are Nobel Prize laureates. They are part of the global campaign for peace and justice in Cameroon. So F.W. de Klerk is now campaigning for peace and justice. But in Cameroon, Richard Mande urged the United Nations Security Council and the African Union to push for an end to the fighting. Now, the group of 15, which includes 3 former U.S. ambassadors to Cameroon, wants a truce between the military and Anglophone rebels in the tribal western regions so health workers can safely stop the virus. All right. And we move to Malawi, where votes are being counted in Malawi following a rerun of last year's election on Tuesday. Polling was largely peaceful, although President Peter Mutharika accused the opposition of acts of violence in its strongholds in the center of the country. Now, his narrow victory in 2019's poll was annulled in February after judges ruled that there have been evidence of vote tampering. The incumbent is facing a strong challenge from the opposition coalition led by Lazarus Chakwera. The results may not be declared for several days. But you know what? We shall be here to keep you up to date and bring you the latest in regards to the elections that took place there in Malawi. And this was a rerun after, of course, as I've said, the High Court, the Supreme Court, nullified the elections that happened last year, May 21st. They were nullified this year on 3rd of February, and the country was ordered to go into another election in a period between 150 days. So they did that on Tuesday, and Peter Mutharika is seeking for a second term there. All right, and we go to Niger, where Niger's state prosecutor says there is evidence that the country lost almost $50 million US through a military procurement scandal, referring to an audit by the Defense Ministry. Mamoun Sayabu Issa said there has been overcharging for items and military equipment that was paid for but never delivered. A preliminary audit had found more than twice as much money had been lost. A statement from the prosecutor said there was evidence of fraud, false documents, and illicit enrichment. The corruption scandal caused an outcry in Niger, which has been suffering from increase in attacks by jihadists in the southeast and west of the country. And we move to Burundi, where Burundi's parliament has approved Alain Guillaume Bunyoni as prime minister, the first person to take on the role in 22 years. The opposition has been restored by newly elected President Evariste Ndayishimiye, who was sworn into office last week, 2 months sooner than planned, as his predecessor Pierre Nkurunziza died earlier this month. MPs also approved Prosper Bam Zombanza as the new vice president. The 60-year-old has served as vice president before under Nkurunziza between 2014 and 2015. For the last 5 years, Mr. Bunyoni has been security minister and is a very influential figure in the ruling CNDD-FDD party. And we turn back, we go back to the Nile scandal, and the Arab League on Tuesday called on Ethiopia to refrain from starting to fill the reservoir of the large dam it is building on the Nile before an agreement is reached with Egypt and Sudan. The resolution prepared by Egypt and approved by the Arab League foreign ministers, except those of Djibouti and Somalia, was adopted during a video conference. It calls on Egypt not to fill the reservoir of the Renaissance Dam without having concluded an agreement with downstream countries. Ethiopia has indicated that it will start filling the reservoir of the dam in July Even without an agreement with Cairo and Khartoum, now the Arab League meeting comes after last week's failure of negotiations between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia, and we shall talk about that. And we go to Nigeria, and this is some news concerning Biafrans, and the indigenous people of Biafra has accused some Igbo politicians and fake pastors in the country of being a tool in the hands of Fulani cattle rustlers to bring confusion to the struggle of Biafra realization, according to a statement by the Media and Publicity Secretary IPOB Emma Powerful. It also noted that the latest allegation of their leader Nnamdi Kanu allegedly hating the Christian religion is sponsored by the same fake men of God, who has also accused of perpetrating such act of selfish interest. He continued that for the upteenth time, I'm quoting what Mr. Powerful said, our leader does not hate Christianity and will never attack the faith. What he is against is the twisting of some Christian doctrines by the selfish and greedy pastors to fleece their brainwashed followers. I don't know how even this kind of statements is helping in Nnamdi Kanu's defense. I don't know. You know, when it comes to religion, it's a very emotive and very personal matter. So matters religion, these are things that people should handle with a lot of care. It's quite emotive. So by Mr. Nnamdi Kanu's spokesperson, publicity secretary here coming out and saying that what is happening is what Nnamdi Kanu is against is the twisting of some Christian doctrines by the selfish and greedy pastors to fleece their brainwashed followers. I don't know if that will work for his good, but you tell me what you think, because I think the other day we were talking about the same, and IPOB leader there has responded to those claims. Remember when a certain guy from Delta region, I think, came out and said Nnamdi Kanu was planning that after Biafra land becomes a country, if at all, he stated last week, following a meeting between President Salva Kiir and the leader of the SPLM-IO, Dr. Riek Machar. They offered 6 states to the SPLM and 3 states to the SPLM-IO. The opposition alliance was given Jonglei State as its share. But the coalition has issued conflicting statements regarding the new deal. And still with South Sudan, the United Nations Security Council has extended the mandate of the United Nations mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, in a resolution seen by the East African newspaper. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the Council renewed the mandate up to March 15th, 2021. The Council praised the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, for supporting South Sudan's government, especially in the formation of a unity government. And still in South Sudan, and I think that's where we shall end, the United States and Estonia have warned about the ongoing conflicts in South Sudan will likely erode the gains made in the implementation of peace agreement if not immediately addressed. The two countries told the United Nations Security Council meeting on Tuesday that the people of South Sudan are facing monumental challenges as they confront both escalating violence and the coronavirus pandemic. They said the situation has worsened due to lack of access to primary health care services, overcrowding in displacement camps, coupled with poor access to safe drinking water and sanitation. The two Security Council member countries expressed serious concerns over the increase in intercommunal violence, including the use of military-grade weapons and tactics, in addition to widespread sexual and gender-based violence. Now, the political coordinator of the United States mission to the UN, Rodney Hunter, called for urgent implementation of the security arrangements and the immediate appointment of state governors. He said that the U.S. expects South Sudan's leaders to govern together as one government and work in the best interests of its citizens. And I'll quote him, a government working together would respond immediately to address outbreaks of violence anywhere in the country. On Tuesday, President Salva Kiir set up a team tasked with looking into the conflict in Greater Jonglei. However, findings of a similar committee that he had set up in 2017 to look into the Taban Ndengai that was set up by, the first Vice President Taban Dengai in 2017 were not publicized, and any action was taken. So thank you so much. It appears this is something that has been happening, and the United States and also Estonia are raising questions about and concerns about the recent upsurge in intercommunal violence that I think we've been talking about now for quite a while. And so they're saying, quite interesting here, this person said, Mr. Hunter, who is the United States mission to the United Nations and political coordinator of the United States mission to the United Nations, he said that a government working together would respond immediately to address outbreaks of violence anywhere in the country. And I just have one question for them. Have they been seeing how President Salva Kiir, his deputy, Dr. Riek Machar, and the rest of the stakeholders and the leadership of South Sudan have been working? Together is not a word that you throw in that relationship there. They've not been working together. And so this person is saying, as long as the leadership of that country do not come together and work for the greater good of the country, and then it will be very difficult to address outbreaks of violence anywhere in the country. And I totally agree with this person, because these are things that we've been talking about here every day, and these are concerns that we've been raising, because every time you're reading a news from South Sudan, I don't know if there's a day or a week that will pass without reading about an intercommunal violence that has erupted somewhere. So another concern that they're raising here that is quite interesting, they're saying that now there's an increase in intercommunal violence, okay, but including the use of military-grade weapons and tactics. So they're saying this intercommunal violence, this community vigilantes, this community militias, they're not just community militias who are just walking around with machetes or arrows and bows or such like militia or community, whatever. But what they have is sophisticated military-grade weapons. Now, I want to bring to the attention to the recent news we've been reading here. I think that was is it a week or so ago, sometimes back, not about 2 weeks ago, when a report came out that soldiers who have these military-grade weapons, all right, and usually they're placed in these specific areas, cantonment areas, and they're supposed to be there. But due to the difficulties and the inhumane conditions that characterizes these areas, so they find that they cannot continue being there, and many of them have not been paid for quite a while now. Remember when soldiers were shooting in the air because they've not been paid for a while. So now what happens is the information is that these same soldiers with these weapons have been leaving these camps and melting into the communities. So when they go there, and we've been saying this as something just to pass by, but now we see what is happening. This, the United Nations Security Council members here are saying that what is happening in those intercommunal violence, people are not using crude weapons as you would expect in an intercommunal disagreement, vigilantes or just village militias. No, these people who are fighting in this intercommunal wars, who are participating in the violence, in the intercommunal violence, they have military grade weapons. That is because a lot of these military men and women, I don't know, they got tired of being on the cantonment areas because they're not taken care of properly, and a lot of them have been escaping these camps and going into the community. So what do you expect? And just here we were saying, how are you not sure that these soldiers will not go there and start forming other forms of militias in the communities? And now we see this is what is happening. So when they go fighting, when they go attacking the other ethnic group and other ethnic community, then they do it with these military grade weapons, as these United Nations members there have cited. So I don't know what they expect. I think the situation in South Sudan in regards to its security is something that should be taken very seriously, and the issue of soldiers leaving these cantonment sites and melting into the communities with these very dangerous weapons is something that should not be taken very lightly, and government needs to move with speed and arrest any more of these cases and just try to get some of these weapons that are now in the communities and are not supposed to be there, because who knows, we shall never see the end of these intercommunal wars and the unrest that is in South Sudan. So I think the government needs to move with speed to ensure this is able to be curtailed, and it should not happen any further. And so at that point there, they're saying a government working together. We are yet to see the government of Salva Kiir and his deputy and others, working together for any common good of the country and the people of South Sudan. So until we get to that point, I think we still need some intervention. I think we still need the international community to hold them accountable. The other day we were having this conversation here, and a lot of South Sudanese came out and said, no. We don't want any more presence of United Nations Security Council, United Nations, army there, peacekeepers there, because even the ones who are there, they're not doing a good job there. So there will be no point of adding more. And even as we speak, the other day you were not very happy when doctors suggested that South Sudan should be handed over to the United Nations Security Council. Well, let me tell you something here. Where is that news? I'm looking for it. I just read it here a while ago. And UNIMIS, it's here. The United Security Council has extended the mandate of the United Nations mission in South Sudan, and this is in a resolution seen by the East African newspaper, that is a Kenyan newspaper. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the Council renewed the mandate up to March 15th of 2021. And so UNIMIS, I think, will still be there. I think it's needed. I don't know what you think, but I think as things are right now in South Sudan, they still need the United Nations mission in South Sudan there. We still need the peacekeepers in South Sudan because of the situation in that country, but we need them to do more. I don't know, in terms of just the peacekeeping and providing security, because a lot of cases of insecurity and killings and all that have been happening near where UNIMIS is stationed, and residents there have been wondering what is the purpose of having United Nations here if their presence here means nothing. We still experience insecurity. Our people are still getting killed, and so that has been questioned, and so now I hope they will do better, because the thing is, South Sudan still needs help in terms of even the peacekeeping missions. So UNIMIS, I think it's a good thing that the mandate has been renewed to next year, March 15, but I think they should step up and ensure that they are able to ensure South Sudanese they are safe, especially the areas that UNIMIS has been stationed. We should not be hearing of these intercommunal killings, and yet UNIMIS peacekeeping mission is just right there. That does not make any sense. Otherwise, South Sudanese might rise against this mission, as we saw that what was happening in Kivu in the DRC Congo, when the same United Nations mission in that area, and the same place that the United Nations mission was stationed, a lot of insecurity happened, and militia was thriving, and people were being killed. And so the people in the DRC in North Kivu or South Kivu, in Kivu, went and literally banned, the camp of a United Nations mission there. And they're saying, if you're here and you're still being killed and militia is thriving around this area, so what is the point of you sitting here and enjoying fat checks from the United Nations, and yet we are unsafe? It does not make any sense. So I'm just hoping that it does not get to that extent in South Sudan, and even as the United Nations, their mission for South Sudan said it will continue to investigate some of those claims that has been made through some people there in South Sudan. So now let's just move quickly to this matter before I conclude. The Arab League the Arab League on Tuesday called on Ethiopia to refrain from starting to fill the reservoir of the large dam. It is quite interesting. So this is very important. Egypt is very important. Egypt is just not important, but Egypt is quite interesting because look here. Remember the crisis that we have we have right now in Libya. And yesterday we were having this conversation here over the situation in Libya and the latest, and that press conference that President Fattah el-Sisi had on Saturday, saying that if Libyan the government of national accord, if the forces went past a certain place, then that will be a red line if they stepped, and that is within the territory of Libya. And Egypt was saying, should they cross up to here, then that will be a form of aggression, and the Egyptian army will not hold back from attacking or from going to protect the territory of Egypt. Mind you, that will be the land inside Libya, all right, somewhere near Sirte. So now Egypt, which has been backing Haftar, called on another press conference and another meeting, virtual meeting, which Libya refused to attend because of the conditions that have been put in place. Libya, led by the leader of the National Accord, GNA, said, no, I'm not attending, because Egypt, who is the convener of this meeting, first of all, is supporting supporting the enemy to the GNA. So how can this meeting even be fair? So GNA, which is the leadership, recognized that the United Nations in Libya refused to attend this meeting because, anyway, who would? So now Egypt convened another meeting on behalf of the Arab League, all right, and also that meeting that Egypt had convened for Libya to force the GNA to have talks with Haftar. Also, it was convened under the auspices of the Arab League, and Egypt was the convener of that meeting. So now, also here on Tuesday, the Arab League, came out and called on Ethiopia to refrain from starting to fill the reservoir of the large dam it is building on the Nile before an agreement is reached with Egypt and Sudan. Now, the resolution was prepared by Egypt itself on behalf of Arab League. So, are you understanding what is happening here? So the resolution was prepared by Egypt and approved by the Arab League foreign ministers. So this Arab League, I think it's just an organization that is just there to stamp a lot of things and a lot of interest by Egypt, from what I'm seeing from that meeting that happened on Saturday, and now this one here. And so Egypt goes and prepares a resolution and says, now you Arab League foreign ministers, you need to approve this. And of course, the only countries that are part of the Arab Leagues that did not approve this resolution includes Egypt. Djibouti and Somalia, which I think is quite interesting. Djibouti and Somalia did not approve. Okay. All right, so that's very interesting. So it calls on Ethiopia not to fill the reservoir. Listen, Ethiopia has used about $4.9 billion US. That is the amount of investment it has put into the Grand Renaissance Dam. And Ethiopia is waiting for July, a period where there'll be heavy rains, for it to start filling the dam. So that means Ethiopia it's being very mindful. Okay, it's being very mindful. And so I don't know how Egypt even thinks Ethiopia will not go on to fill this dam, and this is becoming a problem or a misunderstanding that will escalate. What I don't understand is, why is it that the Arab League, they are led by Egypt, would think this is something that they should have a nose into? Why are they meddling too much into African affairs? I believe when an African country is having a misunderstanding with another African country, according to the clarion call of the African Union, Africa solutions to African problems. Can we just solve our problems by ourselves without bringing our people from outside who come in here with their own intentions, with their own interest? And that is what we've been seeing here. And now Egypt thinks, I don't know if he brings the Arab League Now this will even matter, and it just doesn't make sense. So Egypt goes and prepares this resolution, and then the Arab League, foreign ministers come there and just stamp everything that Egypt wants. It does not make any sense. So I don't know if this effort will stop Ethiopia from filling that Grand Renaissance Dam. I don't know how that is even possible. We've talked about that matter in Cameroon there, where the Nobel Peace Prize winners there, including F.W. de Klerk, are now calling on Cameroon to a ceasefire between the Amazonian fighters and the President Paul Biya's government fighters there, army, for a ceasefire to ensure that the people in the Anglophones get the treatment, get the testing that they require. During this time of COVID-19, Bismarck Bura, you're saying, Miriam, are Egyptians true Africans anyway? I don't know, but they're in this continent. They're stuck with us. So what do they want? Jonathan Salatiel, the whole region should prepare for terrorism rising. These gangs have amassed weapons that once pushed out will spread to other areas. And Emmanuel Malwal, you're saying UNIMIS is not doing enough to protect the people of South Sudan. Even people kill themselves inside the UNIMIS camp. Oh. What? Like people, committed suicide or somebody killed the other person? I don't know. Please explain that to me, Manuel. And you're saying, Miriam, some soldiers who are leaving cantonment sites is their rights. Last week, 5 soldiers died due to lack of food in their seats in Nashawa military cantonment site in South Sudan. So you're saying for the soldiers who are leaving the cantonment sites, we can't really blame them because there's not food in this. And I think we've had this information before, but now it appears that the situation is getting very dire. So that is something very, very serious. So when I hear people, they are still fighting about positions, I don't understand. I really don't understand. So I think this is something that requires a full attention of President Salva Kiir, and he needs to do something very, very quickly, all right? Okay. I think that I will leave now, and I will see you here tomorrow, even as we wait for the votes there in Malawi to be counted and for the results to come out as they went for, they voted on Tuesday yesterday. So we are waiting there. So anytime from now. But we've been told it might take a few days. I don't know how many people voted in Malawi, that it will take forever. But we are waiting for that, and we shall keep you up to date. Thank you so much. And I'll see you again tomorrow. My name is Miriam Ogutu. A very good afternoon to you.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.